When I was a kid, there was this anime on TV about cars racing on mountain road. The racing scene makes me thrilled even till today. So I was very happy when given this AE86 kit as a birthday present last year, because I finally have the chance to build a model to pay my tofu tax, in tribute to the dream and passion of a young boy I was. But having strong passion alone doesn't make a good model. Instead, I have several frustrating moments such that I almost wanted to give up this build. In today's video, I'm going to show you my 24 scaled Initial D AE86 build. In the anime, AE86 was driven by a high school student Fujiwara Takumi to help his dad deliver tofu to the mountain of Akina. Takumi picked up his driving skill during the delivery and eventually found himself winning multiple races against more powerful machinery, which earned the name the White Ghost of Akina for his AE86. In the real world, AE86 is the model code of Toyota's 5th generation Corolla, manufactured between 1983 and 1987. It has two variants known as Sprinter Truno and Corolla Levin. Due to its lightweight, 50-50 balance, and rear-wheel drive configuration, AE86 was popular among Japanese street racers. The famous drift king Keiichi Tsuchiya was one of them, who won multiple races in 1980s with his AE86. Coming back to the build, after taking out and cleaning up all the parts, I painted a layer of inspection putty for the car body. It isn't serving the function as a primer, but to reveal the seam line and shrinkage of plastic, which otherwise are difficult to see. I labeled the seam line with a marker and sand it down with 600 grit sandpaper. The shrinking plastic can be easily spotted after wet sanding the entire car body, which were removed by further sanding around those spots. This little dot is the door lock detail, but I think it can be made better. So I cut it away and drill out a hole in the same place, in order to replace it with DIY parts later on. The kit has several injection marks in the engine cabin and the bottom of the hood. I cannot leave them untouched because the engine cabin is an important display of this kit. Although the spots are awkward, I managed to deal with them with my sponge sandpaper and special shape sanding board. The coating on some parts needs to be removed and repainted. After soaking the parts in paint remover for a few hours, I washed them with my ultrasound cleaner. I also created openings on the racing seat where the seatbelt would pass through, just to make it a bit more realistic. The engine body is formed by two parts, which means there will be a gap in the middle. But the parts have decent fit, so I only need to use extra thin cement to assemble the parts and use sandpaper to remove the gap. I assemble the suspension parts before painting because they will have the same color anyway, and I will have less parts to manage. But some parts are more tricky to pre-assemble because I need to get the orientation right. So I dry fit them on the chassis and then apply glue at the joint. Once the glue is dry, the parts will be locked in the orientation and can be easily reinstalled. Until this point, everything is going smoothly. But very soon, I'm about to experience the most frustrating painting session I've ever had. I first painted the parts with a layer of putty to unify the undercoat color. For some reason, I didn't pull the trigger on my paintbrush all the way when spraying the putty. As a result, there are tiny grains forming on the surface. These grains will not be covered by the paint, so I wet sanded the affected area and reapplied the putty. Next, I need to paint the car body in white. I don't want to paint black first because I'm not sure whether the white paint is able to fully cover the black paint underneath. Although it does mean that I will need to mask a larger area of the car body, which are painted in white. When masking the car body, I started by covering the edge with masking tapes cut into thin strips, and I used blue tack for the curvature around the fender flare. With the outline masked, I cover the remaining areas with full-width masking tape, which saved time cutting them into strips. When the masking is done, I painted the rest of car body in black. The paint job seems alright, but as soon as I start to remove the masking tapes, I realize there's leakage in multiple locations. The edge at the fender flares are not as smooth as I wanted as well. So I decided to cover the black area I just painted in order to cover the leakage with another layer of white paint. And I also learned how to use a circular cutter to have a curved masking tape for the fender flares. But with all the extra effort, it ended up causing even more trouble, such that I almost give up on this build.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
At this point, for the first time, I had the thought of giving up this build. I have spent weeks reworking the paint job, and I just cannot get it right. But when I set the model aside for a few days, I cannot stop thinking about what I can do to save the paint job as much as I can. Because the other parts of this build actually did turn out well. And I guess something in my mind just don't want to give up the build, even though it won't come out pretty. So off the camera, I sanded off the accumulated paint as carefully as I can, and brush painted to cover the area with color differences. It took a while for me to recover from the frustration of disastrous painting, but there is still plenty of work to do. I put on the decal that comes with the kit, and third-party car plate decal, which is way better than the original ones. When that is set, I painted 3 layers of gloss varnish for the car body and the hood. Although the paint job is effectively ruined at this point, I still want to complete the full procedure and see how it will turn out. For tiny details like the Truno logo, I used a toothpick to paint it in white. The engine and chassis detail is decent, but in reality they should be more oily and dusty. So after all the painting work are done, I assemble them first in order for me to add some weathering. I add a panel lining using Mr. Weather Multi-Black, so that the edges of the details are more pop. After that, I tapped black and grey oil paint on the engine and chassis for the oil and dusty effect. When the oil paint is slightly dried, I wash the surface with Mr. Weathering Thinner. If you still remember, earlier I drilled 3 holes for the door lock. Now I will be making door lock details from this hollow metal tube. I cut the tube into short pieces to allow the blade to squeeze the wall together, forming the shape for the keyhole. After that, I sanded the part with 400 grit sandpaper so that it's flat and fit into the hole. And with a bit of super glue, the door lock can be installed to the car body. I also made some engine cables using these AWG30 wires. The cables need to be bunched, so I used heat shrink tube to hold them together. To create a reflective surface, I polished the car body with 3 different compounds from Tamiya, from coarse to fine to finish. I used dedicated cotton swab and cloth for each compound, and I washed the parts with running water between each round of polishing. The end result is definitely not as shiny as a mirror, mostly because of the issues from the paint job, but I think it's still a nice little addition. When all is done, it's time to put the car together. At the end of it, I'm glad that I pick up this build and stick on with it despite all the issues during painting. It helps me realizing the bad habit in my technique, which I will certainly pay extra attention to in my next build. After all, I'm just a normal person not talented in any of this. It takes plenty of practice and failures to catch up with master modelers, because I'm sure they had more before becoming a master. Until then, all I can do is keep on modeling and keep chasing the dream.
I got no impression. This town is made by limitation.